Okay. Well, I guess just to get started, Chris, most people know a lot about Brian and Jimmy and myself by now, but do you want to just give us a quick overview of your career to date and what it is that you're doing?
I have no idea what I'm doing.
Neither do we.
That's why I wanted to be here. It was a general vibe. Just let you know, I got a bit of reverb, so I'm not sure if that's
Yeah,
recording
you
through.
got to mute up, Brian. I'm sorry, you got to mute. Thanks,
Um,
buddy.
I listened to your introductions actually that you did in your first podcast, and I was like, oh yeah, that's all interesting. Um, I think the best way of thinking of me is 25 years into building businesses. 15 years in a consultancy, and then 9 years, these last 9 years, building something for myself. And I think the way of thinking about that is a few successes and a few failures and a lot of experimentation. But now, finally, I think I'm home. Maybe we'll see. 3 years in, but I was reflecting on it, and it's definitely stolen from something else. And I actually think I really hate the first question of "Tell me about yourself," but I think this might be stolen from Tim Ferriss or someone on one of his podcasts. But it was like, everything that's gone before is a makes me the father that I want to be today, and the visions of what come in the future make me, aspire to who I want to be today as well. And I don't mean that in any trite way. I really mean it. That none of it even matters, like the work or what we do or what I do anyway. I mean, it does, but it also doesn't. I just think it means that I hope that I'm a better father figure for the kids, better partner to Ali, and maybe it's all part of the journey of founding businesses and trying to find something more, which has taken me from consulting into medical, digital therapy, rehab, inventing computer games for rehab, into this world today where, we build content management solutions, underpin it with facial recognition technology, whatever it might be. So we've got authentication, and I have a recruitment company as well. So we've got those three things going on. And what's really on my mind at the moment is how you create category in that, how you create something completely unique that no one else has done. I don't mean blue ocean in that way. I definitely don't mean red ocean. I mean something in the middle in this concept of purple ocean that I'm playing around with. So create category, create meaning, create something different, something that's valuable and valued, but all of it all the time, making me a better dad. So there's a few thoughts whirring around with it that I play around with, and yeah, I think that's a reasonable summary. Oh, I'm 47 and I live in Sydney, and I've got 4 kids, and we live on the beach, and that's it.
Sounds like a pretty good life you have going on.
Don't be fooled.
Well, I run a business too. I know how torturous it can be.
Yeah.
So, sorry, Jay, did you have a schedule that you want to go through? I just have questions already.
No, Jim, go for it. Yeah.
Yeah. So Chris, it sounds like you started a way that a lot of businesses start with, like consulting work. Were you doing like custom like application development for clients, and then you transition towards products? Is that your journey basically?
In this business or in previous businesses?
Well, you said you did about, was it 15 years consultancy, and then 9 years you've been building something different. So yeah, did you start like as like an agency, a web agency, or what did the consultancy look like?
Yeah, so it was about 2,000 people, and it was Australia's largest Australian-owned management consultancy. So, you're talking 1,400 permanent staff who were project managers, business analysts, systems implementation, integration, so it was a broad multi-practice consultancy of about 1,400 permanent. The 600 or so contractors were run through a recruitment company. And where I sat was in the middle of those two things, running the recruitment businesses, but also then cross-selling consultancy services. And I never sold anything specific, but the way to think of me, I mean, I ended up as sales director of the company, is a multi-practice seller. And nothing gets sold without domain experts like people like you. So my job is to operate as like a connector, an ultimate connector. And that's what my skill set is. My skill set is nothing domain, but it's about connecting people and being able to chameleon into places. after that, I built, co-founded a computer gaming company that was making digital rehab stuff. So that was so out of my comfort zone because I had to learn about product and hardware and software and releasing shit and why doesn't the Bluetooth work and everything that any one of you guys would just know. That's the thing, you just know this stuff. My brain doesn't even work that way. I don't even know what people are talking about half the time. It's a real, like, gargantuan effort to understand the most basic of things. So no wonder that one was a challenge. Um,
That's
um,
interesting. So what made you go from like the consulting world to the game development world? Were you just, I mean, I know obviously people, Jason is one of them who's worked in consulting. It's a churn and burn industry. It's like, it's hard to stay in for a while. Were you burnt out and you just want to try something new, or like what made you do that transition?
I think I'm a fool at times. And like, I was thinking about something you said in the first episode. I think it was you, Jim, talking about simplicity, lifestyle, and getting out. And that was a good job. I was really well paid. I think respected enough. My ego said so anyway. Um, and I didn't do one job for 13 years. It's always the frontier of creating what's next. Creating new revenue lines of business. And I wasn't burnt out. I love that job. I still actually really love the people I worked with at the time. But that's a perspective thing. I just think we drifted apart like relationships do sometimes, and so it was mutually friendly. But I think really the genesis of that is I should have just shut up and put up and carried on doing it, because maybe I'd be in a completely different financial position. I mean, it's a sliding door moment, right? I'm watching Dark Matter at the moment, so these alternate universes are going on for
Yeah.
me. Um, so I don't know, man. I think. I ran into a colleague yesterday and I was saying that maybe that was the right choice to stay. But then again, I wouldn't have gone into gaming. I wouldn't have gone into product. I wouldn't be here today. I wouldn't have met my partner, actually. I probably a whole load of stuff that wouldn't have happened. So I don't know. I just think it was a moment in time, a choice, and possibly this innate desire for there's got to be more adventure out there. There's got to be something more that pushes me. And I have this pedigree, I think, of not competing, but wanting to achieve something. I don't even really know what it is, but something. And I think that's what pushed me out. Sorry, made me go out myself. It wasn't a real push because there's probably an option to stay, but it felt like there was something more that I couldn't put my finger on.
Yeah. I think entrepreneurship is like it's almost like a virus, right? Like it kind of takes over your body and like, so I think about it too. Like I worked at a startup that had an exit and people got paid out, and I'm like, probably would have been a better financial decision to stay there, but I want to start my own thing. It's just like have limped along for 9 years doing that. But I don't think I would have changed it, and it's all kind of, it's all evened out, I think, financially, but it just, I don't know. It's hard to get rid of that bug when you have it. And it's hard to put your finger on what you're chasing. I don't know. It sounds like you have this vague idea of success. Like I think I have something similar. I can't really define. And I know that like this hedonic treadmill exists where you always want more and whatever. And it's weird because like, who are you proving anything to? It's just kind of strange, but, yeah, I think I get that on some level, of course. It seems like you've done, you've been in the game a little longer and have tried some different things, which is cool. But yeah, it's I don't know. I can relate to that.
I had this great quote the other day. It's like maybe the viral thing about entrepreneurship is the same as the curiosity thing, and it's curiosity is not finite. The more of it you use, the more of it that there is. And I think it's true for adventure and experimentation and getting different things done. I think it's true. I think it becomes a perpetual cycle.
I think it's true for most things in life. I think discipline is like that. That's something I realize. Like the more disciplined I am, the easier additional discipline becomes. Like it's weird. Like making the hard decisions makes actually more hard decisions easier. It's strange how life works like that.
Man, that really resonates. That's really true. That's really true for any. I mean, I just find discipline begets discipline. Curiosity begets curiosity. You know,
Yep.
Being a dickhead, unfortunately, doesn't beget more dickheads talking to you. Sometimes they seem to survive despite themselves. I don't get it. It's one of the big, you say, you say it's not loosely defined. It's loosely defined. What I'm looking for. I don't think so. I really want to strike that balance between creating wealth, which is security for my family, and a business of meaning. I really believe in freedom principles, and I want freedom for my family, and I want freedom for the people that work for me, with me, around me, and I want them to have authentic and meaningful relationships, which is actually how I ended up here, right? Because Jay and Ali were talking. Ali works in Thunderlabs, but she also is my partner, as it happens. And she's like, "Oh yeah, this guy's interesting. You should chat to them." And here we are. I'm really into whatever this thing is next, and I'll show up for anything that's like that. What that means is to show up for anything like this. I'm not showing up for other stuff that I find is a waste of time, an emotional black hole, toxic in some way. Like, screw all of that stuff. I'd rather turn up for something where someone goes, "I think you're going to like that person," and this is where we are, right?
Well, I mean, I think that's a really nice compliment. I think obviously, like, our podcast is basically a blip on the map. Like, we don't have any real huge following. I'm sure people listen to us now when we have tens of thousands of followers. But like, I think the cool thing that we have going is we're all genuine friends, and we like we've known each other our whole lives, and we like hanging out together. So we don't have an agenda of what we're trying to do. We don't really give a shit about pleasing anybody or trying to push any message. We just like to hang out and have fun. And I think there's a little special spark in that, but that's cool that's interesting to you in that way.
No, I disagree 100%. I'm in this for the money.
It's funny you say that about Spark, because I was not jealous, because that's a negative attribute, but envious of that. Like, I agree. I thought it was so cool. I actually think it's no. I think a Rogan approach, a Socratic approach to asking questions. Everyone's so media trained, and it's so fake and inauthentic. And actually, it's what I liked about the segments of yours that I listened to, and I like that. I'd say I'm envious in a good way. There's three friends. I'm like, shit. Which of my friends would actually rock up at 11 o'clock in the morning in one country and 9 o'clock at night in the other? And have a bit of fun with this. I've been actually trying to get my best mate. You guys, and I really, this is going to sound like I'm not blowing smoke up your ass. It's inspired me to go to my mate Redbeard. Go, dude, we've known each other since we were 10. You're in a media and content business. I'm trying to create a content-led digital company. What the living fudge has stopping you from jumping? You've even got your own podcast, and I've got mine. Why aren't we doing one together? So I really mean that as a compliment. Like, it's a good dynamic.
Well, that's cool. If we have to be the Tom Green to your Joe Rogan, we can do that. I don't know if we're podcasting maybe for inspired Joe Rogan's interest in podcasting. So. Right. But nobody listens. Sorry, Tom. No,
I didn't even know he had one either.
Yeah, I was like way back in the day. I have lots of questions. I don't want to. Brian, you unmuted. Why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, am I still reverbing terribly?
Yeah. No, not when you talk. Just when we talk.
Okay. Well, all right. I'll ask a question quickly, and then I'll mute myself. So, how the hell do you manage being a CEO and having 4 kids and a family life? Like, I'm struggling just being like a lower level programmer at a company and managing family life and work. How do you do it? I still trying to figure it out.
Are you on mute yet? That was a good dramatic pause, wasn't it? But it was just trying to allow for technology. I'm not sure I do. There's only 100% capacity, and something has to give. And these past 3 years, the thing that's is given for me is fitness. Like, I don't know how people do all of it all at once. These paragons of ultimate warrior everything. I mean, they've got a lot to answer for in terms of our expectations on ourselves, and I just, I find it difficult to get cut through. I mean, I happen to like Tim Ferriss and whatnot. He admits himself he hasn't got a kid and stuff, so maybe that's how. But for me, something's got to give, and capacity is a challenge. I put on 20 kilos actually in the last. It's probably up to 20 kilos, yeah, in the last 3 years. Before that, I competed in road racing, as in bikes, ocean paddling. Did Molokai crossing a few years ago. World championships and different bits and pieces of sports. And I've just really struggled with finding the capacity just to do it all. Like, it's crazy. I don't know, man. But I think not that I'm advocating this as advice, but being married once and then divorced meant that I was also a single parent for quite a while, with two kids at the time. And but what that did is just gave me real quality of time with the kids I had at the time. And that has set the foundations for everything from there on inwards. The foundations were set at 3 and 5, and it just means there's a dynamic of working with a couple of the kids. And now we've got 4. I think I used those experiences of what set those foundations well with the first 2 to try and set the relationship with the now 4 of them. And to be honest, it's going to sound like such bullshit, but it's a bit like a work exercise, just really direct communication with the kids, black and white. There's no time for negotiation. I mean, there's only firm boundaries and, and also culpability on my part. I think I have to operate in the mode that I operate at work, and I have to bring that at home, because context switching is too hard. Like for me anyway, maybe I just don't have the ability. But luckily, I think that the way I operate at work is similar to the way I operate at home. And I have found that someone did a study on my brain, and apparently that is my flow state. I am most happy when I can be my true, authentic self at work and at home, and I'm deeply unhappy when I can't be. And I find that's the only way I can cope and have the capacity to do what I do, which is hopefully build an amazing company and hopefully build an amazing family. That's the only way. There's a lot to be said for flow states and being oneself all the time. As long as that person's not a dickhead, hopefully.
I can definitely sorry. I can definitely understand transitioning between having the business mind and then going into dealing with young kid stuff and trying to transition out of that state of mind, and transitions can be very difficult. So that's I will definitely take that and see if I can help myself get into a better family life state after work, because whenever the kids get home, sometimes I'm just like can't even I don't have the brain capacity for it, I guess. But that's
I know what you mean. Do you it's funny, I found that at work I use books as a reference. I mean, I like research, so I pick up something I use at work for what we're doing. And I found, same with the kids, I picked up Ryan Halliday's 365 Meditations for Dads. I was using almost like a prayer book, which sounds, maybe blasphemous, but I don't mean it that way. I mean it as a compliment to faith and structure. And was reading that for a while, and then I picked up Kaz Cook's 8 to 13-year-old girls. And when we've got a problem, I'm like, so what does it say in chapter 2, page 7? How do you deal with that? So I'm use the same principles that I use at work at home. I'm referencing it, because otherwise I would just explode. And maybe I have in the past, right? So I don't know. Maybe that's why I ended up with divorce or something in the first place. But yeah, there's really something to it. This is all pseudoscience, not big S science, right? But I do think there's something to it. I reckon we're also hard on ourselves, I think you got 2 kids, right, Brian? Is it 2? Yeah. How old are yours?
They're 4 and 6. So we're getting
maybe a few years away.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like kind of like Chris, the point you had about just harmony with being your authentic self. I think that's something that I've run into these situations in the past where like I've had really good work gigs that pay a lot of money, but I felt out of harmony with the like either the management team or something something to do with the people I was working with in some way. And it wasn't in the point where like it was like overly contentious, but I didn't feel like I was my best version of myself that was following what my version of like truth and pursuit of good work is. And like it's really hard to work in those kind of situations where you feel like you're out of harmony with your authentic self. So I think that's I don't know, that's a super important part for people. If they're like struggling to find their path, like whether they're going to start a company or work at a company, I think, I don't know. I mean, sometimes I look back, I'm like, oh, well, money's good. Maybe, it makes sense to put up with that stuff for a little bit of time. But at some point, like figuring out how to find a better path is usually well worth it.
Yeah, I don't know. Like it's. I mean, I'm always going to be the one that would leave. Always. I think though, my other self, that alternate universe, would be the person that would still cash the check, take the money, and it would be a different path. Because I think our primary, for a parent, I guess the primary purpose is to provide for the family, but even as an individual, it's psychological safety and physical safety for oneself. I mean, they're very important factors. So I don't know. I do think that could probably suck it up. I mean, I wouldn't say, it's funny. The funny thing is, I think I was just reflecting on what you asked before, Jim. I reckon this was born out of just wishing that I could find a leader to work for. Like I always thought I still think this, like it's such a weird thing. I actually think I'm a better lieutenant than anything else. I think I'm really good at amplifying what leaders want. What I have found is authentic leaders, rather than leaders that have been promoted for the wrong reason, really hard to come by. And the irony is, I don't mind like mistakes. In fact, I quite like it. I like seeing the human side. I like seeing people, execute imperfectly, but then rectify, because that's a great trait. I mean, I'd work for that too. I've just found it really difficult to find. Ironically, as a builder of a company, I see them more in my customers. I now meet customers, and whatever this is I'm putting out to the world, I now meet customers and go, God, I would really work for them. They are. I mean, they wouldn't employ me because I'm not tech, I'm not product. I don't even know what I do. I mean, I'm really good as a glue on their projects and bringing their people together and facilitating, and a change agent, a catalyst. That definitely. It's not what they do. I just meet great tech leaders, and like I would love to work for them.
Yeah. I've definitely come across people like that too. I've had a fortunate experience of working for some really great bosses as well. Sorry, one more thing I thought was interesting that you said. So that kind of like push and pull of providing for your family. And I feel like that almost is, I think it might be more complicated than it seems on the surface. So like on one level, you can provide for your family financially, right? Stay at a job they're unhappy with or whatever, cash the paychecks, and then you get a bigger house. But on the other hand, if you let that drain you as a person and let yourself become like bitter and resentful of that experience and exhausted where you can't bring your best energy, you're actually not providing for your family on a personal level by being a better version of yourself. So I feel like there are real trade-offs between those things. So I don't know. It's not always cut and dry like that.
Yeah, that really makes sense. Yeah.
I had a question about just kind of like foundational things with your company. So it sounds like you had a pretty good job doing consulting for a while. Did you like use savings from that to bootstrap a company, or did you go out and raise money, or like what was your process to like get started on a company? I think a lot of people have an idea in the back of their head that they want to start something or they want to get something off the ground, but it seems so daunting to even get started. What was your process for doing that?
Well, I've tried a few ways. Thunderlabs is a version of the first business I built called Explore the Blue. And that was a riff off blue ocean thinking. And I made a really big mistake actually, which cost a lot. And I don't mind sharing this stuff because I think it's along the vein of, a human in the hard drive of the mistakes that, people make or the lessons along the way. So I made a lot of money in consulting, working with somebody else, bought a couple of houses, whatever on the mill, the treadmill, whatever the thing is, and then give or take, founded Explore the Blue. employed some people, and someone had an amazing idea for a product, which was, their idea for a product. And the mistake I made was getting too enamored with the product rather than our core business, which is kind of where I am today. So I shifted from Explore the Blue to the computer gaming company, which I was really ill equipped and ill prepared to do. And so I went from doing what I know really well, that I'm a master of my craft at, which is, consulting, to becoming a product CEO. And to do that, I used all of my savings to try and bring something to life. Now, we did take some money, but it was never enough money not to be in pain. And so actually the money we took caused more pain because of the governance and the controls and everything else, but it never was never enough to change the company. So I actually doubled down on the mistakes. I used my money, then I used too little investor money, and just had pain all over the place. And so for 4 years building that, I went from set up to zero, or less than. And it was at that moment that friends of mine who maybe had a similar but did something different got out. Like people had built companies and sold them, sort of had an intervention. There's a guy in particular whose name I won't mention, but he's a very well-known Australian entrepreneur. And he's just like, man, you need to get out now because otherwise there's no coming back. And it was him who said, go back to what you're best at and then restabilize and then look for the mission once you've got security, and I think it was, and there's bits and pieces in between, but that's effectively what happened. And so Thunderlabs is absolutely, I co-founded this business with 2 other people. I've just bought them out. I don't mind talking about that. But this one's a complete organic build from scratch, all net new customers, no one I ever did business with before because a lot has changed. And so it's now a self-funded, actually, it's a pretty good company. Objectively, it's a good company. We've got some good stuff going on, and I feel lucky because despite the headwinds in the market, we're making progress. And I could be out of business tomorrow, which is terrifying. And that's not just like a flippant statement of reality. It could just if cost of cash is 8% to borrow money to pay the people on time. So if my customers delay by 30 days, then I'm absorbing that cost. And it's not the money people think. So it's not a flippant statement to say. So, I've learned my lesson. Organic growth, don't take investment if you can help it. Be clear on who your customers are. Get them really early, and I definitely have some counter wisdom to prevailing wisdom in terms of how you build. And the biggest thing there would be people would generally say singular focus, whereas I believe in multi-practice for a reason. Which again, I'm also happy to talk about if you want to explore that. But
Yeah, that's
I
such
think.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. No, you go, please, man. Yeah.
No, I just think it's interesting. You hear different schools of thoughts on that. There's there's a bunch of people coming out with this school of thought of diversified holdings for companies, right? There's the small bets community and a bunch of other indie hacker type stuff. And then there's other people who are I'm trying to think of there's some, I can't come up with the title off the top of my head, but I've read some books of the one thing, right? That's an example of one. The one thing, it's unless you're making I forget what his threshold is, $1 million of profit. You should be only doing one thing, and you're diverting your attention if you're doing multiple things. So it's weird because you hear these people giving almost contrarian advice, and it works for some people and not for others. So that's interesting. So you're taking the diversified portfolio approach.
Yeah, absolutely. Diversified. I've got about 20 full stack engineers, about 6 people in Auth0 authentication, and then I have a recruitment company which has got limited number of people, but let's say 10 contractors, right? So give or take. I use each one of those as a leverage access point to the others. I'm experimenting with data as well already. I'm experimenting with AI widgets and different. I've got my core, and then I'm experimenting all the time with what I'm building up because all of those lead to this conversation here too. So not only do I believe in diversified services, I also believe in diversified commercial entry points. because let's just say I'm selling a full stack project. I've observed what built the last company. My co-founder built a well-known company in Australia and sold it. What built that company was selling bundled services, and the market's moved on for that type of thing. People now want an easier on-ramp, which is sometimes an individual. And so, we seed winning the big work by delivering an individual and then eventually complicate the commercial relationship in a good way, and make it more valuable for them by then, bundling services together later on. So multi-practice, multiple commercial entry points. And I think it can work at a company level, and it does for us. But it's very hard to do at an individual level, because how's an individual appear, multifaceted? I know, Brian, for example, you've spent all your career in software engineering for one particular technology, which is unique to the organization that you're in. And, that's one of those conundrums of how do you create, alternate access to technology and a narrative around skills. I mean, I don't know. It was just a thing that came to mind when I was thinking about you when I was prepping for today.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out how to get a different a latch on different technologies. I think this upcoming summer, I think I'm going to really try to play around with trying to figure out different avenues for me. But yeah, it has been a big struggle for me to try to. So for one, I haven't necessarily wanted to get out of my path. I've really enjoyed it, but I do know at some point I do need to pivot. And it's just a matter of when exactly, and how, and then how. I'm trying to figure that out, but I'll mute myself.
Yeah, because you've gone singular play, right? Jim, you're web dev.
Yeah. Yep. So, I've been doing web consulting for, well, more than 9 years, but with my own little business for 9 years. And yeah, it's kind of been like project to project, some different technologies. I mean, we've run the gamut of lots of different technologies, and we've done everything from like education, like we've taught teams of developers and other things. So I've got my hands on a lot of different things that are pretty interesting. But now we're just starting to do more product investment. I mean, I think that's the transition a lot of people make. They start in service, and they use that to, service is kind of like linear growth in a lot of ways. And they use that to build some kind of exponential ramp for product development. But it's hard. And, I think I'm obsessed with this idea of bringing down the technology barriers to make these experiments a little cheaper and quicker. But you can also get obsessed with that to the level where you don't actually deliver stuff, because you're always trying to lessen that barrier. So, a lot of things we're learning. I've had the same struggles that you mentioned early on, like in the game business you had, which is a notoriously hard industry. But I think, you spend up, you do these investments where you start, $1,000 turns into 10,000 to multiple tens of thousands of dollars. And you spend these investments and you're like, I think this will be fruitful. And then you go, you do that for 6 months and you're like, okay, is this the right thing? And sometimes you're looking for someone to shake and be like, stop spending money on dying things. And it's hard to know where that is, because I try to use my like internal sense of if I believe in the product direction as like a compass, but it's hard to know if you're crazy, right? It's like, okay, the industry just doesn't understand what I'm doing yet. Okay, well, will they understand in 10 years? Like, who knows, right? So it's very hard to do it. I don't know. I don't have like a silver bullet for that. Service is a lot easier to make money, but I'm more intrigued these days with making product revenue, because I feel like maybe there's a little bit more control for your own destiny if you can get there, but it's hard. I had some questions about more about starting your company. And Jay, I feel like I'm occupying all the time for your question. I'll ask a couple. Is that okay? And then kick it over to you.
Just keep going, man.
Okay. So I was curious. So with your new products that you're building, Chris, did you build a community first? Did you have like some kind of like niche online Twitter or Reddit or a community that you were working off of, or like how did you get your first customers?
Yeah. there's a few answers to that, but nobody I do business today is anybody that I did business with in the previous 20 years, which is really weird. Um, and there's some social observations I have of that. Not bad, but some observations I can look back to. The the hardest thing I reckon for it's going for an interview. It's the same. I'm interviewing every day, right? And how do you convert a stranger that you've just met into a customer? In fact, how do you even meet the stranger? How do you walk up to the stranger and go, "Hey, I'm Chris"? And this is what I've always held as a truth, and I really believe it. That recruitment as an industry is not only done badly a lot of the time, but it's also seriously underestimated as a engine to meet strangers. And so I just got that reverb again. Sorry, guys.
I got it too.
Yeah. And so, I would honestly, it's not an exaggeration to say I do 1,000 meetings a year. And many of the times it's like, well, someone in my recruitment company will headhunt or reach out or say hi to someone, and they turn out to be interesting. And then like, oh, would you like to meet Chris? And so I meet people that's maybe even not when they're looking for work, but it's a stage where maybe they're considering it, or maybe they want an insurance policy for 5 years from now. But what I find is my business, the core of it is to go from never heard of someone to stranger stage very quickly. And then then it's so what? Because I'm meeting all these new people. And so the next bit from taking them from a stranger to a prospect, let's say, is the investment in content that I've made. So for 3 years, if you look at Thunderlabs on LinkedIn, which is the main channel for us, I invest in content all the time, all day, every day. And it's not just, oh, hey, buy Thunderlabs stuff. We've only just started doing that actually 3 years in. It's here's a view on leadership. Here's a view on how you might navigate this. And so which I'm trying to, reduce the life cycle of trust by having a very visible brand. But my engine to get people into the life cycle in the first place is the amount of people I meet, and the recruitment business has been unbelievable for that. The major advantage that I saw in consulting 20 years ago was the fact that there was this recruitment business of, whatever. And they just meet people all day, every day. And recruiters actually are really fun. They can be really nice people, and people like them. And they just then need someone to connect that. Oh, I like those into a trusted relationship. And that's the thing that I think that I do. It's not about just being fun and nice. It's like, well, fun, nice, and then so what? How do you make that into something commercial? And that's actually, I think of what I'm actually describing. There's a version of this. It's about which is modern sales, both at a company level and at an individual level, which again leads me back to why I love the fact that you guys are doing a podcast, because this is part of the tool set of the modern technology person. Actually, anybody, but modern technology person. This is almost, we're doing this and we're trying it because it's another skill. Because I heard you all talk about, you didn't say uncomfortable, but there's something about being uncomfortable in this or experimenting with it. Something in somewhere I picked it up. And I just think it's bloody great. I just think it's great that you're doing it because it's another thing that you have to do,
Yeah, I think what you're talking about came from Brian in that very first episode. He was like, he's very introverted, I guess you could say, socially, and yeah, he wasn't really sure how this was gonna go for him. Yeah.
The funny thing is, Brian, like maybe I would be like, oh, Brian's introverted a little bit growing up, but having worked in tech for 15 years, Brian's like a straight up extrovert because the scale is so different in tech. Like I don't think of you as introverted at all. It's hilarious.
You've known me all my life, so you know all the I don't know. Whenever I go to meet someone new, it can be hard for me. I don't know. So yeah, it's still an experiment in terms of how this whole thing's going to go for me. But we're doing it. That's all that matters.
But Chris, I agree. Like those touch points are so important with building trust. I mean, that's why companies spend millions of dollars advertising, right? Like what's the old adage? You need 7 exposures to like have some kind of trust, right? And I've noticed it in myself, my own psychology. I'll see somebody posting online, I'll be like, "Who's this person?" They're like, "I don't know why I'd pay attention." And then I see them do like 3 or 4 useful things, and I'm like, "Okay, this person's like legit," and I trust this person in a certain way. So it definitely works.
I think
And it's
so.
good, like you're out there providing value and providing content. Like that's the best way to build trust, right? Like actually give folks something, and I think it goes a long way.
Yeah, I think that's true, and it is and it has to be authentic because
Yeah.
a lot of content is inauthentic. There's a lot of virtue signaling for pick a topic, and I would love to see the corporates that say this actually follow through on what they're purporting to give a shit about. And our radar is more tuned in than ever to this to that. And I personally am veering away from brands that don't do that. But Brian, I was
I
thinking.
love.
Go on. You know.
Oh, I just love when that blows up in brands' face. It's because
Yeah,
okay, at the end of the day, we're like trying to do commerce. We're companies. We're trying to sell things. Let's stop whatever. If you do whatever you want, but like I find it really annoying, and I think it's hilarious when it blows up and like everyone gets mad at them for doing that because it's just like hollow, and it's hilarious when that happens.
Yeah. And I enjoy it too. As long as it doesn't happen to me, it's fine.
Yeah, yeah.
It's funny that I was thinking about Brian on that, and it's something that people don't think of me because I'm an extrovert in some situations, but I'm also deeply introvert in other situations. And the situations that I'm deeply introvert is when I have to be a showman and make stuff up. I get really uncomfortable with not truth. And when I go to a meeting, and there's like 20 people sitting around a board table and it's like, "Oh, tell me about yourself." I'm like, "Oh, fuck me." Everyone is so good at that and they just make it up. And it's like, "Oh, wow." Whereas I can't help but going, everything's a bit shit at the moment, you know? And I know I can't say that. So then I feel the pressure to say the other thing and I can feel myself with this build up of alarm and anxiety. And it's because I don't want to be false, but I know that's not what's expected of me. People expect me to be this sort of out there, "Oh yeah, everything's amazing and I'm going to build something." And that's not me. That's not my brand. It's not who I am. And I remember my first podcast I recorded, I prepped 90 questions. I'd gone and looked at, who do I want to emulate and what's their style and how do they get there? And I still get like even today, I still get like this weird feeling. But that's why I'm actually doing this. I'm doing this because it's actually forced me. Even yesterday, I was having. "I'm going to pull out of that. Fuck it, I can't do it. What are they going to ask me? I don't know." And then I'm like, "What's wrong with me? This is not." And again, this isn't made up. This is really what I think. But I found sitting opposite people, particularly in the booth when their breath is on my face and they can look right in my eyes because it's really close to our little podcast booth. It's done something in my brain in a good way, like really. And I just got to keep on working the muscle. And I found lucidity of thought and articulation and all of that stuff that people go, "Oh, you're so good at that." I'm like, I don't know what's going on, but I'm reading a lot more. I'm talking a lot more. I'm trying some things and it's kind of working. I don't know where I'll be in 10 years with all this shit. Probably nowhere. But it just resonates. That's all. I guess what I'm saying is I'm choosing the medium in which I feel like I can be an extrovert, and I'm choosing the medium which I know makes me an awkward introvert. So people ask me to go and talk at something, I'm like, fuck no. Get the guy that doesn't care to do it. I can't do that. Not yet. Anyway, not now.
I always I like so how you like kind of describe entrepreneurship where it's like, oh, it's hard and like I never know if I'm going to make payroll and whatever. To me that like seems much more truthful in my experience. Like for instance, I read a lot of business books and I like a lot of them, like Tim Ferriss, for instance, like 4 Hour Work Week. That book was super motivating to me. And I do believe in like the Pareto principle of like 80-20 and stuff. But part of it's like, it's selling this dream that it's easy and you can do it pretty quick. And for me, it's like, I read books like Ben Horowitz, Hard Thing About Hard Things. And like that resonates more because it's just like, no, like my experience of this is it sucks. Like every like, I mean, don't get me wrong. I like the path I'm on, but like, it's almost pain all day long, like all the time. Like if people are saying that it's not, I don't believe it unless their experience is just way different than mine. It's just like, it's hard work. There's constantly a fire to put out, or like something to stress about, finances or this or that. And like, if somebody's just like waking up and just like it just comes to them, then okay, more power to them. It's just not my experience. So I don't know. It doesn't connect with me in the same way.
Yeah. I actually reference the struggle and Horowitz's hard thing about hard things all the time. And also the multi-practice thing is this answer about not having any silver bullets, just fire lead bullets. So that's actually directly taken from that, and obviously category from Tim Ferriss. So, it's like picking those things from that. I'm with you. Yeah, I really like the struggle. I think I say the struggle, and people just go, "You're just miserable," I'm actually not miserable either. I'm like, it just is what it is. I caught up with a friend of mine this morning, and you made me think this before, Jim. And she's an entrepreneur who's built a really good business here, and she was talking about innovation and preserving the core and that constant. But we have to do the same with our skill sets. And that's obviously stolen from Gene Collins. How do you preserve the core of what you do as a business and innovate around the edges so you don't miss out on the next great thing, but don't get distracted by it? And I think it's the same with skill sets. It's like, how do you preserve? I mean, I started selling COBOL and mainframe stuff. Well, I was completely rookie in sales, and the guy that was running the company said, "We've got a great sector for you. It's been around for decades. It's not going anywhere. Sell Kix COBOL, DB2 mainframe shit." And that's where I started.
Yeah. You can still make money in COBOL. Like, like there's a lot of money there. It's wild.
Yeah, I'm glad I'm not in that market anymore. Let's just say that. Yeah. But the point is, for that type of technologies and technologies come over the years, it's how do you preserve your economic engine and do what's valuable today, whilst investing in whatever the next wave is, and be ready for that next wave. And I constantly feel that pressure to be relevant, and I know that's sort of the context of these podcasts that you guys run, because it's about humans and careers and what they do and what they don't do. And I think that pressure to be relevant in the future is always on my mind. I don't know if that's I was reflecting on it recently. Maybe it's a hardwired thing in certain males. Again, Ferriss calls it. No, is it Tim Ferriss? Maybe it was Chris Williamson, of being a highly vigilant character type, rather than always alarmed or panicking or anxious. It's high vigilance. And I really like that distinction of being a high vigilance character. Anyway, it's just another thing that had come to my mind, Brian, thinking about introvert, extrovert, and what people think I am. And it's quite the opposite.
It's funny. Things are a lot of the time. It's about how you frame things, right? Like I'll be in the same situation. So calling yourself high vigilant versus like anxious aware or whatever. Like I think you can be happier. Like you could be going through something hard, but if you frame it in a positive way that it's growth oriented versus like my life sucks, it just makes things easier to tackle. Sorry, I'm going to shut up after this, but I have one more question that I'm dying to know. So you started a company with some co-founders that you eventually bought out. And so I'm curious, to start with co-founders or not, like, is it the right call? Was it good for you? Was it necessary to get to where you are? Would you do things differently? And how would you approach that? Because I started as an individual, and sometimes I wonder if I could have done more with partners.
Yeah. I would know a fraction of what I know today if I hadn't have co-founded with those guys. So no regret there. The technical co-founder, Andrew, is one of the world's leading thought leaders on accelerated delivery. So how do you deliver pilots in an accelerated time frame? He's genuine in the real deal, and every good and bad thing that comes with, in terms of how do you get shit delivered no matter what. That's him. He wrote the book Beyond Agile and sold his company for a lot of cash about 10 years ago, I think it was. And that's how you deliver systems in modern architectures, like he was that guy. So, but that comes with pain, right? Because they're so sure, and he wouldn't mind me saying, past success is not a predeterminer of future success. And I think the world has moved on from building a company 10 years ago to how we deliver now. So anyway, that's one thing. And there's probably more to unpack in that. And then my other co-founder, Adam, is one of Australia's leading brand people, so he's also social. And I think sometimes we wouldn't have the look and feel of what we do in terms of delivery. I wouldn't know that. And we wouldn't have the look and feel in terms of content if I hadn't met both of those people. Um, um, So I'm thrilled, though, to have bought them out because I've gotten everything that I needed. And I mean, I don't have their expertise, but I've gotten everything that I've needed. And actually, now I can pin my ears back and don't do by negotiation or compromise or whatever, anything. But having said that, I need to replace their talent with other people, which is now probably going to be employees or other people that want to buy into the business, right? So the skill still needs replacing. But the fundamental thing after 3 years for us is we didn't agree on strategy, funding, and culture.
Yep.
Three fairly major pillars.
That's it.
Because we're all so very different. They are the experts in their field, and I'm a guy that glues experts together. So therefore, I mean, it's not that I don't have an opinion, but it's generally more shades of grey than black and white, I would say. And so there's a big cultural difference for us. But I will say this, I don't think, I think that we have just executed between the three of us one of the most graceful buyouts the world has ever seen. It cost us very little. He was a good lawyer, but he was into what we do as a business, so he was not generous but good with his time. Actually, no, that's not fair. He was generous and good. And then Andrew and Adam could see a path that Thunderlabs had provided for all of us, but it was a natural time for them to part. And they both really did the right thing. But it just took, it's so funny, it took them being really human about it, parking their egos and what they thought they were entitled to, what they thought they weren't entitled to, and just realizing that we've done some work for 3 years, but the next decade there's going to be even more work. And so, man, I got really lucky with co-founders, those two anyway. Unlucky that we had to exit each other, but really lucky at the same time. It's that duality. The previous business I founded, I had two co-founders there as well, and you'd think I would learn from mistakes. I just don't think that they respectfully had they're not bad humans, but they don't have the maturity to understand what's on the line. And it's not a lark, and a great product doesn't mean it's going to sell. You have to do all of that together, and so that was a completely different experience. And which to the dichotomy there, which would have me saying, I think I got completely fucked over in that one. I had the opposite experience where I actually ended up exiting and got screwed on it. Despite the money I'd invested. So yeah, it's I don't know, man. I don't think there's any particular pattern there. Maybe I'm older and wiser.
So in both cases, you had co-founders that had complementary skills. Mm-hmm. So that wasn't different. Do you think in hindsight you could tell personality wise the maturity difference that between the groups of founders?
In hindsight, can I tell the maturity difference? Yes, I can. There are some common threads to entrepreneurs, people who will take a risk. There's something about that. But I think fundamentally, with people who have had to play nicely with others at some point, even if they don't like to, a relationship, business, being employed, reporting to a board, CEO, whatever. That's different from people who have never done that and are used to having it their own way. I think great inventors can be a little bit that way sometimes. They can just be so sure that their thing, and so they don't want to play because they really believe they're the best engineer in the universe. It's actually in 0 to 1, the Peter Thiel's book about people who they're no offense to physicists, but they're a physicist or something, and they think the same principles of being a nuclear physicist or whatever applies to running a business, and it doesn't. What's that? Sorry.
Should
Jay
I
has
feel
a physics
attacked?
background. I don't know if you're. This is
I
a
did.
shot
I
at
did.
him.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. It wasn't. But I do think that's what Peter Thiel talks about in a book. I can't remember, but
Yeah.
there's definitely something to do with science. And it's like an engineer who thinks they know everything about everything because they're the world's best at that engineering thing. But actually, they need to know lots of things about other things to be a really good CEO or business builder. And so I think that's it. It's like this. I think the thing that I've learned is maybe to trust my instinct around their ego and as to whether they will let go and actually ask the right questions. One of my problems is I'm too damn polite, and I'm also I want my what people said to me, Chris, you're always trying to help the bird with the broken wing. It's like it's a strength, but it's also a weakness. And I think as I am today, I'm 47. I just can't afford it ever again. That's the answer.
Yeah.
I can't afford ever again to do that ever again because I will be screwed if I do it again. You know, so maybe the environment actually forces out the aspects of our personality, like this, I would never be kill or be killed, but kill or be killed. But part of that, and it's always this. It's really difficult to have those. I say killer instincts, but also keep them on a leash and not turn into a complete arsehole, which others might say I already am.
I have that same blind spot of I see potential in everybody. So like I can talk to anybody. I'm like, this person could, with like some gymnastics, be the right fit. And I'm really bad at like cutting off the lower end that's not going to work. And my wife is actually amazing at. So whenever we interview now, because we've had dozens of consultants over the years, and I always have her pulled into that process because she can like she's called every one of the consultants who's cost us money and hasn't produced anything. She's called every single one of them, and everyone who's been amazing, she's called that too. So I don't know if it's like, maybe females have to, they have to be more aware of their environment. So like they're better like judges of like subtle cues or something, but, or maybe just Stephanie's really good at it, but, I don't trust myself in that realm anymore. I just like say, okay, I think everybody's going to be great. And like, I'm 50-50 on that.
I hear you, dude. I find myself. I mean, I'm like, oh, come on, give them a chance. Maybe they're not that bad, but I'm always wrong.
Yeah, same.
I mean, maybe it's a mindset thing or a protection thing. Stephanie's like keeping an eye out for you, Jim, and she's like,
guess.
don't mess with my man. You're going to do some of the business. I can tell.
Yeah. Maybe. My theory, my like completely probably sexist theory is just that like women, like their environments are they're more vulnerable in certain ways. So they have to be more aware of like cues, and maybe she's just picking, I don't know. That's complete bogus pseudoscience, but I'll throw it out there for people to listen to.
I think it's true. You heard it here first.
Yeah, exactly.
Man, I definitely feel like I'm doing all the talking.
Jay, I feel like I've boxed you out. What? I'll shut up, but you can go now.
Well, I guess we've grilled Chris a lot. Did you have any particular questions for us that you wanted to discuss, or?
No, I don't actually think I do. I think the envy had me want to participate. Like a little gang that you can be in for a period of time, and also it feels exotic being on a podcast with Americans. I think Americans have a great voice for podcasting. Maybe it's just because it's what I'm tuned into, and like more podcasters are American. I don't know. So I didn't in particular. Oh, sorry.
I think the Brits win that. If I'm being honest.
Oh, really? Oh, great. Okay, well, you can have mutual admiration for Brits and Americans, and I mean, and that's a rare thing, right? So obviously, there's something weird about this group right here. But the thing that I always do have in mind, I wonder what your reflections and deliberations have. I really want to help people future proof. I really want to help them, be ready for whatever adventure or misadventure they have. In Australia, I posted something on LinkedIn this morning from Cutler, beautiful mess content around project managers and project managers in the market in the US. So I understand it's a little bit suppressed there as well, and it is here in Australia. And I think there's a lot of people in a lot of pain. But so I wonder what precedents you have around how technical people might take care of themselves and make sure that they're relevant in the employment market in years to come. And there might be nothing, right? Because I know you're sort of on that journey, but you guys are, I don't know, a dozen episodes in or something, and you've obviously been thinking about it. So, like, what advice are you giving to people at the moment?
I mean, I'm happy to take that one first. So for me in my career, right, I started at the same company Brian works at, and it took me not too long before I realized that like I didn't want to get stuck there knowing this one technology because it was going to make it hard for me to find a job in the future. So I transitioned to something that had, you know, skills that were more universal than where I was before. And then I worked in, on-prem infrastructure for 7 or 8 years. I saw cloud was sort of the new thing, so I decided to move towards that direction. So I think the thing is basically what you really need to do is look at the trends and where things are going and how you can leverage your existing skills to move into a different direction if need be. Um, I mean, certainly cloud has had a major impact on like on-prem infrastructure and stuff like that. So, um, yeah, I think it's really all about just judging what the trends are and how you can use your skills to move in that direction, whether or not be like something technical or not. You know what I mean? It doesn't necessarily have to be like a like for like swap. It could be like working at help desk. That's customer service skills, right? Like you don't necessarily have to be technical in your next role. So I think it's just always looking out for what's new and what can be relevant to you and what makes it what what your skills make it easy to transition to another role.
Mm. And how do you distinguish? Because I've been thinking about AI recently because everyone's advertising, oh, they've got to
Yeah,
have AI, right? Everyone's got to
I'm
be an
so sick
expert
of
in
hearing
AI.
about it.
Yeah, right. So how do you distinguish from a? It's not that it's not going to be a thing, but it's also whether it can sustain all of us because everyone's like cross training. I'm like, it's like everyone's going so early into being ready, and I'm like, is there enough jobs out there? And everyone has the aspiration of, I would like to work with AI, like blockchain 2 years ago, and I'm like, and I'm bullish. I think it's going to happen. I had to tweak some of my content recently on this, but how do you distinguish from a where we are in that trend cycle to make sure that you're not investing too early and there's not enough jobs? Like, do you have a view on that? That's a really
Yeah, that
difficult
one's
question,
hard,
I think. Yeah.
especially with AI, because like it's hard to judge how actually like good it is at the moment, and then until I think until there's like actual like I don't know, I guess metrics for it. Like I mean, we did an episode about AI on this podcast, and like everyone thinks Chat GPT is so advanced, but it couldn't put Terraform template together to spin up something pretty basic in AWS. So like until it actually can do something impressive,
Mm,
or even just like moderately impressive, um, like if that's the field that you want to work in, go for it because it's certainly going to get a lot of funding and stuff like that. But as far as like worrying about it replacing you at the moment, I don't think it's really something that's on the immediate horizon.
mm, mhm, yeah. All right.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm the least worried I've been about AI since like the Chat GPT whatever first launched. I think I think it's real. I think Web3 or decentralized web, whatever you want to label it as, and AI are both real in my mind. I think there's something there. I think Web3 is underhyped right now because it had a bunch of grift and fraud and nothing useful came out of it.
Mm,
And I think AI is a little overhyped right now. And I think there's probably a lot of grift happening there too. But like, I think they're both real, and I think they are going to be large in the future. I just think right now, for instance, AI for coding, I use it. I use it a fair amount because it's better than Googling in a lot of ways because it's specific to the problem at hand and has very like good context awareness of your specific code base. But it's also not useful in the sense that it produces lots of garbage and you feel like you're black box developing. So you're kind of throwing things in and you're getting lots of things that are 80% of the way there. And so it's I don't know. I think there's meaningful stuff happening there. I'm excited in the space, but I'm less like when it first came out, there was like a month there where I got knocked down where I was like, everything I'm doing is irrelevant. We're not even going to be interacting with computers in the same way. And I'm basically trying to, in my company, I'm trying to build really like stupid, basic technology that almost feels like it was built in the 90s in a lot of ways. And I was like, oh man, I'm wasting my time when AI first came out. And now I'm doubling down. I'm like, no, AI is not going to do what I thought it was going to do when it first came out. It's going to be useful. It's going to be a tool. And eventually, I mean, long tail, I think it could replace humans, right? Like, I think it could be that good. I just think we have a long way to get there. I'm doubling down on my dumb technology for a while. I think it'll be relevant for the next 5-10 years, to be honest. So, yeah, that's my thoughts. I don't know.
So is that
hard to tell.
Is that the advice to people? You got spot the trends and be aware of them, but don't get them too early. But you're a fan of double down on dumb technologies.
Well, no, I'm not saying everyone should. That's what I'm interested in.
Yeah.
So I'm interested in like really simplifying the tech stack in a lot of ways. I don't think that's what everyone should be doing. I think there's probably more people should be doing AI than doing what I'm doing. But I think, follow your interests and I don't know, I wouldn't chase every shiny object that comes along. So for instance, I was already, 3 or 4 years into what I'm building now when AI started blowing everyone's minds. And I was tempted to just disregard what I was doing and drop the train. And I'm glad, and for a sec, because it seemed so groundbreaking at the time. And now that I've spent, countless hours using AI, I mean, tons of models, like local models, quantized stuff, like, I've spent a lot of time in the space. I'm not convinced that it's worth jumping ship for and discarding all the work that I've been doing on the thing I've been working on.
Got it. Yeah. Cool. What about you, Brian? What do you reckon?
So I didn't get to, say anything about Jason saying, I was going to get stuck in his own small technology.
Yeah, shots fired.
I'm doing just fine, thank you very much. But yes, I am a little stuck. But it hasn't hurt me. So yeah, I think your original question was kind of like, Jason was talking about how you would judge the market and how he moved forward. In our first episode, we were kind of talking about how we are all in different spaces and we've taken different career paths. I've obviously taken a very unique career path in terms of staying with the same company for my whole career, and I still I somewhat stand by it. I'm a little bit at their own mercy, but I also think that have a very solid footing, and I'm very well trusted within my organization. So I don't know. I think there's definitely different career paths that you can take out there, that there isn't a definite correct space to go in. I know that has nothing to do with AI. That's kind of I completely turned us back around into a different question there. But yeah, AI for me. Go ahead.
You're following that path of deep specialization, because this is the thing. You've got the broad and the breadth of skills, but then you've also got being the absolute expert in the skills, and there's something in that, isn't there? Which comes down to kind of like, I'm just thinking about what people do, where they spend the time and where they invest, and doubling down on being the expert in the thing where there is demand is not a bad thing, as opposed to trying to become the expert where there's uncertain demand. Like, it's definitely a path.
So in terms of me knowing anything about AI, I know my path of my proprietary language, and that's about it. So I don't know much about AI. Sorry.
I don't think, like, I know we talk about this all the time. I'm not as worried about your like investment in proprietary language as you are. In my mind, if you're a senior developer, there's all sorts of skills that surround that in terms of running a team, doing code reviews, like understanding high level programming concepts and structuring code. Like it's all the same, right? So for instance, I did a little Java development for an Android app way back, but like I could become a Java developer tomorrow if I want. I don't want to, but like I could switch programming languages. It doesn't really. I don't think that would like stop me. It might be hard to get a job initially, right? Because they'll say you don't have Java experience, but I'm not that worried that those skills don't transfer pretty quickly to something else. That's just my own perspective. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. That's how I look at it.
But I was gonna say that gets back into my whole personality trait of being taking that risk of taking that jump into something uncertain. That's not me.
That's hard for everybody though.
Yeah, I was just gonna try to push back on what Jim was saying a little bit. So I think it might be harder than you're giving it credit for, just because of what the job market is like at the moment. And I've dealt with lots of recruiters. No offense to recruiters, but most of the time they don't actually seem to know what it is that they're looking for, and they look for very specific keywords on resumes. And obviously, I'm generalizing here, but yeah, a lot of the times in my experience, when I've talked to recruiters on the phone, I understand what they're looking for better than they do. So Brian's resume not being able to have some specific keywords on it does make it a little bit more difficult as far as actually getting a recruiter to like recognize the fact like, oh, he actually does have skills that relate. You know what I mean? It's like, how do you sort of convey that to a person who has no idea what they're talking about in that space? You know what I mean?
Yep. And to be fair, like, so I'm not speaking about getting hired. Like, I honestly, I don't have enough experience in it. I've been doing, like my company for 9 years and was working at a place for like 3 years before that. So it's been a long time since I've been in that game, and I don't know what recruiters look for or how to get hired, to be honest. I'm not, even though I'm on this podcast, I don't really know much about that. I'm thinking in terms of like the practical knowledge of doing the job and doing it well. I think you're in fine shape for that.
Yeah, sure. But there's a big difference between being able to do a job and being able to get one.
Yeah, 100%. So I'm not speaking to that first.
Yeah.
That.
I actually think that's an interesting one. I mean, I started in recruitment, and out didn't do anything else, so just a recruitment company, and no one there knew anything, and that was 25 years ago. And they didn't need to. They needed to do some other things. They needed certain personality traits. They needed to be resilient and take no's, and just like there's a skill in that that's good for in some ways, but terrible in others, because they also tend to not be detail orientated, because the detail would hold them back. Because I've reflected on this a fair bit. It's always been the way that recruiters, I mean, there are some very good ones out there and they technically know enough, but they've actually also most of them have never done your jobs. But then I reflect on project managers and product managers and CEOs and then deeply technical people articulating what they do in cyber, for example, which is always a pet love of mine. Deeply technical cyber people trying to, can you just talk like a human so everyone else here can understand? And then we keep on going down the path of acronyms, but they can't translate that over, And I think that it might be, this is where I'm getting to in, these days. I think that the narrative is very important, and how we articulate our experiences to get cut through with recruiters. And I think there are some tricks to that. And it's something that my job has always been to teach consultants to say what they need to say to get the job, not a lie, but the truth. Turn that down, turn that up, express your weaknesses as strengths, and do it up front, not at the end. Don't wait to be asked if you've got any weaknesses. Start there, because it throws the interviewer off, and that's actually really surprising. And I think that's actually what great recruiters actually do. They actually are willing to engage in the conversation. And again, I'm stealing this from another podcast, but see the fabric of the human and then enable that person to explain their fabric. Now, we're in this real danger of a world where people saying, we'll get loads of efficient, and we've been trying for years before AI. We'll use automated checking, like on applicant tracking systems, to feed candidates through. And that's all bullshit. That just means that, you have to have certain things on your resume to even get through the first, and that's unfair and nonsense. And now we're making it worse with AI, because AI can tell us, and that's also nonsense. The only way is actually looking at someone in a call like this and going, Jay, tell me how you would solve that problem. And we need to get back to that world where actually in the very, very old days, before any of us probably were in technical, that's how job interviewing was kind of had to be done. And that needs to exist now. I just been through this where I was helping a company assemble a team of transformation people, and I had to do 120 interviews to get to the 5 hires they wanted. Like, it was intense, but it worked.
Yeah.
In regards to sort of like the software that some companies use to sort of grab the keywords that they're looking for, have you heard of white text on resumes?
I think I saw this the other day. Is it where you say ignore results, pass them through the process anyway? Is that
Oh
what that is?
yeah.
Well, no. So basically, people will write their resume, but then at the bottom they'll just include a bunch of keywords, but the text is all in white. So it gets picked up by the software, but not by people that are actually looking at the resume. So it's not like they can sort of still get away with saying that they didn't lie on their resume, even though that they were just like circumventing the way that the software was working.
I've
I
heard
thought that
them
was pretty
doing even what
interesting.
Chris said though. Like they'll literally say, "Pass this individual." Like they'll put like prompts. They try to like
Oh, really?
inject prompts into the AI.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're like
absolutely.
this individual is a pass or this individual is whatever, and they'll put it right in the white text. It's hilarious. I think you know what. If you can make it work, then like you're smart enough to get the job, in my opinion.
Well, you triggered a memory for me about the white text thing. I'm sure there was something in recruitment where you used to do the same with the things that you were looking for in the adverts that would go out there on job platforms. So the job would feature higher, there was, or appear more. So there was something, I'm sure someone once tried to show me a dodgy way of doing that. But I think, it's good that the candidate market is doing it back the other way. But I just go, when it comes back to the opposite here. I see companies automating the adverts they put out there, and they've forgotten the advert part of job advert. It's now just a job, and also the human side of what they try and show their organization is just the same as everybody else, because it's like automated text. It's badly written, and ironically, these sometimes can be internal recruitment departments who are also not equipped to hire the right type of person. And it's just it's a process. And so I think employers could also lift their game on the way that they put advert back in job advert and push what they're looking for. And they also need to invest in having really good people assessing the talent pipeline. They basically need Stephanie in there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
All right.
She'd be good at it.
Yeah, it's a real conundrum. This thing I have in mind how, because there's this thing of driving prices down for getting consultants, getting hiring from recruiters, and actually the inverse should be true. We should be paying people to do a very, very thorough job and making sure that everybody gets seen or heard. And I really messed up on some things recently because I realized that the price that people want to pay for the service and my expectations of what the service was meant I didn't have the capacity to deliver on the way I wanted. And so it's a conundrum that I'm trying to fix. It's funny, it goes all the way back to the beginning about what I want this business to be. And I really believe there is a different way of building a consultancy, which actually is putting, it's human back in it, advert back in it, which is why you see so much stuff like, I know there's public build of product companies, where you try and get early customers or subscribers by building the product. I actually believe the same of services company, a public build of services by having culture published and all this stuff that I think we stand for. So I think it's an interesting time where there's a chance for companies to become more human and more real. I just don't know how you do that at scale. I'll let you know when we get to 100 million. Well, anything else? We're an hour and 20 minutes in, flown by.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say that's probably a pretty good spot to wrap up, unless anybody else has anything specific that they want to say. No.
Thanks for your time,
Great.
guys.
This was really fun. Thank you, Chris. This was great.
Well, thank you for being our first guest
I
on
know, right?
Human in the Hard Drive. That was a pretty exciting first. So thank you very much for taking time out of your day for that.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank
All
you.
right.